So this could be kind of interesting. The way I'm holding my phone today and with the lighting, for some reason, all I can see is the reflection of my shirt more than anything. And it's kind of distracting. Um, that, that's the ring pop diamond thing. I don't know. Yeah, it's supposed to be a ring pop, because why wouldn't it be? It's on brass knuckles, so yeah, I don't know. um, anyway, today's been a day. So, this morning I was up and getting ready. And of course, I start every day the same. Getting ready for walking the dogs is usually the first step after I'm done. Um, Not always, but usually. My aunt sent me a message while I was getting ready and asked if I wanted to walk dogs, which really just, she knows that I walk my dogs every day, so it really just means, hey, can I join you? And that's fine, no big deal. I'd say the aunt that, of the sisters, she most gets what it is like in my situation, because I feel like she was probably a little bit of the scapegoat while it was just, my grandparents and her sisters. So, I usually feel like I can trust her as much as anything. There are some things I'm not going to tell her. I told her way more today than I thought I would, but really just, I kind of feel it out anytime I talk to her. I said, I'll tell you something. I said, but you can't tell my mom and you can't tell your husband either, because he's like the biggest mouth in the family. And she knows exactly why, right? So it's like, you don't even have to say it. It's just, you can't tell my mom or your husband. She's like, okay. But then she's always really interested in what I'm talking about. And of course today I was talking a lot about how things seem to be coming together and like divinely guided on the path. So the other weird part is she knows, I think, that I don't like religion so much, yet we talk about God a lot, so I feel like she's just kind of, I don't know, she listens and she doesn't talk about it to other people, and I always feel confident that if I tell her something, she's not going to just blab it or whatever. And really, it's the same kind of thing with the other sister, but there might be a little hint of almost, I don't know that I want to say judgment, but she seems slightly less open-minded to a lot of what I have to say, interestingly enough. But I was talking to her about my whole timeline thing of events falling into place and how things are moving, or appear to be moving in my life, and like the pieces snapping together in ways that I couldn't have even imagined. I was talking to her about like the tarot reading that I watched the other day, and I said it was kind of funny because it was the soulmate reading, right, and Kino Tarot, and I said I felt really drawn to two piles, and then it was funny because like the first pile that I felt drawn to, it was like she was talking about me, right? And I told her, I said, the biggest thing that stood out, I said she got real hung up. She said she doesn't usually use this word, but the word mystic kept coming to mind. And I was talking to my aunt about, of course, how I came up with my screen name. And, that was all. I needed an email address that didn't have my name in it in any kind of way, because I didn't want my ex to be able to find me. And besides that, I'd used, my first, middle initials and last name for my email address for like forever. And then when I got married, and then I had his first initial and his last name, because it kind of rolled together nicely. It was SH, so yeah. But I said once I was in the process of getting divorced, I needed something else on that end, and I said I was just kind of thinking of random words, and it's like, you know what, this mystic thing keeps coming up, so I was like, all right, so what can I, obviously I can't just have mystic, but mystic what? And then she was asking about the mystic part of it too, and I said even how that came up when it did was kind of interesting itself, because where that stemmed from was going back to basic training, when me and another one of the older girls in the group got asked to stand in as battle buddies for the 17-year-old girl who needed to go in front of the cadre and talk to them about something. And I told her, it's like, we agree. I mean, you can't not agree to that. I mean, you're basically voluntold. You have to do it, right? Which was fine. And, I think a big part of why we got put in that position was because we were older. So we had a little more appreciation for what we were being asked to do, I think. I said, but we go into this room. I said, we're standing at parade rest until all these cadre come in there. I said the entire time we were standing at parade rest, it's like just this anxious feeling, which of course, I mean, why wouldn't you be anxious if you're standing in front of the cadre, even if you have no idea why you're there? It's like, don't do anything to fuck up and bring attention to yourself, is basically what I was thinking. I said, but once the cadre came in and the girls started talking, it's like there's just like this overwhelming sense of rage and agony. And I said it was strong enough that I said it was everything I could do not to hit my knees and just like start bawling, just from like this intensity of this emotion that I felt all at once. And I said, it was with me all of basic training, for that matter, every single Sunday when I'd go to the chapel service. It's like I would not miss that for anything. And I would go in there and like sit on the floor in the very front, because there were so many people that wanted to go to chapel, I think mainly just to get out of whatever they would be told to do if they weren't there. And like I would sit on the floor with the group that I was normally with, and I just bawl the entire way through it every single Sunday. And I suppose it was the damnedest thing, because once I got home, it's like I was talking to my mom about this, after I was home from training, and it's like it just dissipated, like it was just gone. I was telling her it was almost like I picked up something that wasn't mine and carried it throughout all of basic training, but then once I was away from it, then it just dissipated. And I got up from that moment and was walking to the bathroom, and I was thinking, well, that sounds kind of mystical. What does that mean, if you can pick up other people's energies and help carry whatever burden they're going through or whatever? It's like, so what does that mean exactly, right? It's like, that's a very mystical idea, but okay, what do you do with that? So I was like, then I didn't really think a whole lot more of it until, of course, seminary. There's actually two parts of it. I only talked to Man about the one part. The part I mentioned to her was we had, I think it was a class that I was auditing. I don't remember what the class was, but the first class we were going around giving a little bit about our own church background, and I told the class, it's like, I said, okay, so I started in a Southern Baptist church and then went to a United Methodist church for most of high school. There was some start point before Okay, we went to church until I was like 8, and all hell broke loose in my life, and I got to a point where, at that point I've talked of frequently, where I thought that God hated me, and so I decided if God hated me, then I hated God. And, then like I started acting up every weekend until we stopped going to church, because the reason that worked at the time was my mom didn't like the church that we had been going to, because I think the pastor got really fixated on what everybody was wearing to church on like Easter Sunday or something, and people weren't dressing nicely enough. So she got pissed at the whole thing, and we started shopping around for other churches. But then I'm a little 8-year-old kid with all this shit that's starting to go wrong in my life, and so when I decided that if God didn't like me, then I didn't like God, then, I started acting up every time it was time to get ready to go to church. And eventually we just stopped going because it was more trouble than it was worth. Until when we started back, it was to the Southern Baptist Church, and my parents didn't go then. My brother actually started going with my grandma and my aunt and uncle when they moved back from Oklahoma. They started going there too. They still go there. We went there, me and my brother went there for a little bit. It might have been actually when my brother was, no, he went to the other one too. I don't know when exactly the switch to the Methodist Church was, but the reason for the switch to the Methodist Church, I'm going to say it was junior year, because it was the drumline group, Paul and Tyler, they went to the Methodist Church, and their families were really active in it, and they started inviting everybody to go, so we switched over. So yeah, I do know it was my junior year. Then we got really involved in that church. Of course, the pastor and the associate pastor were married, and the associate pastor was in charge of like the youth program and whatnot, and they were starting this little red letter service for the kids. So we started, we were the group that started with that, right? So that was the big pull to that church. Anyway, back to seminary. I said from there, in undergrad, I bounced around a lot. Like I lived at the Baptist House, which was an American Baptist group. I went to Campus Crusade on a regular basis, which that's like non-denominational really, because there's so many people. I got linked up somewhere along the line. There was another Southern Baptist group that I was connected to, and a lot of my roommates in like the dorm years and the off-campus years were going to, I think it was some kind of Methodist church. I don't know that it was United Methodist, but it was still something along that line. It was like, even beyond that, it's like, okay, when I would go to church, when I went to Michigan City for my drill weekends, I would sometimes stay with one of the other girls that was about my age, higher rank and everything, but we got along fine. Actually, we got along really well. If we were closer, like location-wise, we probably would have been better friends outside of the group as a whole, but was what it was. But I occasionally I think I went to church with her 3 or 4 times anyway, in the time I was with that unit. So, after I was done with that unit, I was basically in the process of getting out because I broke my brain. But anyway, the seminary I went to, I think, was Disciples of Christ. I went to a Pentecostal service once. That was interesting. So it's like it was always kind of wandering around these different groups, and like, that I told the class in seminary, it's like I never really found anywhere I fit. I said the one thing that stood out, or that had stood out the most to me, and I talked about the experience with basic training. I said, so I have this sense of, it was like I had this idea that this feeling was mystical, but then what would that mean? I said, but I feel like I need to look into that more. And the instructor for that class was the dean of the students at that time. I don't know if he is now or not. It's been a minute. I graduated in 2016, so yeah. God, moving in on a decade of that. That's crazy. But anyway, he recommended this Franciscan monk to me, like one of his books. And he said he was real into Christian mysticism, and he thought that might be up my alley. So I don't think I even got all the way through the book, but I was like, I feel like I finally found somebody that gets it. Yes. It's like, this is the most fit, I'd say, of a belief system that I've ever encountered. So, I told my aunt about that. It's like, that was the one thing that it's like, there's always been this drawback to like all things mystical. So I just kind of rolled with the mystic, because that's why we started this path, was because of the screen name thing, right? And I said, no, it's like, okay, well, what am I pairing with that? And then for some reason, I just started thinking about fuchsia being like one of my favorite colors, and also one of my top 5 favorite plants. And then I was thinking, I can never remember how to spell it. So if I use it for an email address, then I have to know how to spell it, because I'm going to be bringing it up and, giving people my email address from time to time. So it's like I'm going to have to be able to spell it, which is fun in and of itself, because of, there were times I thought I knew how to spell it and then would spell it wrong. So it's like, I was very adamant of checking and rechecking and all that stuff several times before I locked in on it to make sure it was accurate. I remember one day at the library I was trying to, I think they had my old information in their system, and I don't know why. I don't know if they'd had a system update and it somehow reverted back to my old information. But I was like, yeah, I gotta fix that, because it had like my old married name in it. It's like, that's gotta go. That's dead. Dead and gone. So I gave her the email address. Didn't spell it at that time. Usually, I almost always spell it just to be on the safe side. For whatever reason, I don't know if I didn't spell it or if I went too fast, and I don't know. Anyway, like, I had checked movies out, and it's like, I know they're due back within a week, but then I couldn't remember what day of the week I had gone and done that. And then I finally took them back in, and I was like, I don't know when these were due, but I didn't get an email or anything about it, and they were late. And the lady said, oh, well, she said, we don't have your email address. It's like, you have my email address. I thought I had gave it to her, but apparently there was like, I don't know if she missed a letter or what happened, but it got put in wrong. So I didn't have a fee that day, but I currently have a 50-cent fee that I still gotta pay, but I'll get there eventually. That's irrelevant anyway. But yeah, it's like, there's the story of the username, right? And okay, so I started there because I was talking to my aunt, right? And I don't know, there was a lot of these stories that I was telling were related to the screen name. And it's like the dots I was connecting, right? So he came back to this thing and how I've appeared elsewhere, and like when I went on Instagram. Okay, I watched a tarot reading. I think it was either I think it was Jim Goddess, this one night before I was going to bed, and I got this really strong sense that if I'm the runner in the twin flame connection, then that would mean that I would be the one needing to do something to show that I'm ready for the next whatever that's going to happen. So then it was like, okay, well, maybe that means it's time for me to get back on Instagram since I'd taken like a year off, right? Okay. I took the better part of a year off. I accidentally clicked on something that somebody had sent me, and it took me into Instagram once, and that was the whole thing that like I kind of spazzed out on. And then there was another time that I decided, I had my pictures from the Five Finger Death Punch and Marilyn Manson concert back in August, and it's like, well, I want to post these, like, since it's like right around the time of when I went, I'd like to have it in there with that time frame. So I went ahead and was on there then. But it's like I didn't spend any real amount of time there or anything. It's like I was just in there very specifically for that. And then, of course, the time it took me to remember how to post anything. Yeah, because that's always an adventure. But then once I said, so the next day after watching this tarot reading, I get on Instagram, and within a half an hour I see my screen name on like this band page where I had commented on something, and they had posted the thing and said, there's my screen name all over the place. But not before, of course, I have this inclination to get on Instagram again, and then within a half an hour I see it, and it's like multiple places, and it like showed up a few more times, at least that weekend, if not that week, because people would share the thing that it had been attached to, and I was just like, oh man. I told her about my my one dream back in January. Of course, I had the day on when I did video 123 and set the intention that I was ready, right? For whatever was ready to happen next, I was ready for the next thing. I said, and then I had this dream where it was like there was this arm reaching through time and space, and I was on like this car raft thing, and it's like, I say car because it's like there's this little bit of a shell of a car, and I'm like in the passenger seat. I didn't tell her I was in the passenger seat, but from the dream I was in the passenger seat. So I like grabbed the seatbelt and I clicked myself in. I said, and then it was like a raft because then I start going down this river. I said, and I have this arm reaching through time and space that I'm kind of bracing myself on. And I said, I said, all I can see is like these big, thick, black, churning clouds, and I'm getting pulled down this river, and it's like I just have this arm to brace myself with, and I just like fasten the seatbelt, and there's just like, kind of tuck and let's go. But yeah, I told her about that, and then, just like all these different pieces of things, and how my screen name keeps popping up in weird places, and how like I said, okay, like twin flame stuff. I said, okay, so as convinced of this connection as I am, because I would literally not be at this point pushing 200 videos on my freaking YouTube channel. I would not be here at all if it wasn't for that twin flame connection being the thing that keeps pushing me along, because I can't resist it. I have to go through this whole healing process and, navigate all this weird stuff. It's like, since it has been such a driving force of me doing anything in my life, and especially this past couple years, I was like, I feel like that means he has to be aware of it, right? And I set the intention last year at some point, I think around the time I got off of Instagram, because I saw his fangirls, and it was like, yeah, I can't be around that. And I set the intention that he would know who I am and who I am to him. And I specifically said both of those things and specified as different things. I said, so I feel like with where I'm at with everything, like I said, I feel like he's probably aware of my channel at this point in time. And, you know, I gave, like, various things, like, of course, that little band spiel, and, like, the day that I got on Instagram the other day and saw he was doing a live stream, and I clicked into it, and he was, like, playing the guitar, and I said it was like everything just kind of paused, and he was just playing the guitar for a minute or two. Anna said, Mystic Fuchsia has joined. And then it just kind of sat there for a minute. I said, but then he looked up and and it seems like he saw my screen name and that I had entered, because nothing happened for a little bit. And then I said he grinned, and it was like it was in response to that. So, you know, I'm telling her all this stuff. It's like, so I feel like the things that are happening are like shifting things into place. Like, you know, this whole divine alignment thing happens when all the pieces, you know, everybody's ready. Everybody's done the thing that they needed to do to get to that spot. And then, you know, the necessary pieces come together, right? So, yeah. So I just told her about a whole bunch of stuff. Yeah. Oh, man. I actually got into that way sooner than I thought I was going to. But it's just, I think the biggest thing with her is just knowing that she was more or less the scapegoat before I came around. So she's always kind of been, she's always been interested in whatever I have to talk about. And she knows how my mom is, so, because she lived with her, you know, she's the second, and she's 5 years younger, but she's very aware of how my mom is, so, yeah. Ducks look like flying bowling pins. That little dude was just like trucking it. It's like, it looks like a freaking bowling pin with wings. Okay. Yes, I probably noticed that before. I don't pull in my parking lot. I like this one by myself. There's some kind of event happening here. People are trickling in all over the place. So I'm at, like, not the farthest corner away from the building, but pretty close to it. So, yeah. Oh, man. I don't know. My aunt was all interested, and of course, you know, I feel like my family's very much been, you know, ultimately raised to play it safe, and, you know, you don't want to do anything to ruin Don's name, so, yeah. So it's like, nobody's really gotten any kind of big adventures or anything, so if I'm actually having stuff that is looking like I can disconnect, then I think they will be very interested in this. And of course, that's why I'm not sharing with many people. So like I said, my brother, my one cousin, and this aunt, they're the ones that know anything. And the other aunt, okay, I think she'd be completely shut off to the whole twin flame storyline, because she's still very much into the Southern Baptist Church. She goes to a different one than the other aunt, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is there. It's just, I don't feel like she's more particular about sticking to what the church says, I think. Well, it's not that the other one isn't, though. I think the church is just so small over there, it's kind of irrelevant on some end. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, but I talked to her about a lot of stuff. And honestly, it was kind of nice to be able to talk to somebody. So then went to a little ice cream place because we had 4 dogs that we had walked. My 3 and the little corgi pup, which was hers. And since all the dogs were in the back seat, it's like I got a Butterfinger Flurry, which usually, if Ziva's in the front seat, I try to get like the cherry freeze, because then it has a lid that she can't stick her tongue in my ice cream, because it's all mixed together. But since they were all in the back seat, I went ahead and got my Flurry. And my aunt decided to go on that end as well. Normally she kind of follows what I do. But we're sitting over there. Okay. I was infuriated. Okay, so we get the ice cream. All is fine and well. We go to the very end before you pull out of the parking lot. It doesn't have, like, the exit of the place has, I don't know, like 6 or 7 parking spots maybe, right up. There's like an outdoor sitting area, but like there's no cars or no parking spots on the other side of the lane. It's literally like the exit. These are the parking spots, and then there's the road, the path behind it that traffic leaves from the building, right? And we're in the last one, and I try to keep an eye on everything outside of the car to make sure Gidget always sits on the back passenger side, and she has this tendency to bellow when something startles her. And if she is watching like there was a guy across the street and he was spraying weed killer on his dandelions, and he's just kind of going through real slow up close to the building. As he moves closer to the road, I see she's starting to get a little antsier about it, and I just kept telling her to leave it. And it's like I rolled the window up part of the way so she didn't see it as closely because it's a little bit tinted. And so she kind of chill because I didn't want her going nuts, because when she goes off, they all start going off. I've caught it on video many times. It's really tedious and annoying. Then it takes a while to like get everybody to calm down, especially if there's anything still happening out there. Anyway, that guy finished spraying his dandelions and went back around the house. All was fine. You know, when we were parked, the first thing I did was, I have my little system worked out where I can hold 2 little styrofoam cups in each hand and have all 4 dogs in the back seat taken care of on the ice cream, right? They get their ice cream. I'm holding it. I can keep an eye on everybody. I can see, if I start to lose my grip or something, I can see what's going on that end. My aunt was impressed that I was able to handle all 4 of them. It's like, well, I mean, I couldn't do 5 because I can, only hold so many cups. I don't have any of them in here still. But yeah. So we did that, and then I was eating my Butterfinger Flurry, and I was like, well, might as well sit here until we're done with them. I mean, why not? Dogs are back there behaving, and anytime the ice cream's not melting and they can't reach it, that's a good thing. So we're just sitting there, just continuing our conversation, right? I did not see the guy. She saw him when he pulled into the parking lot on the other side of the building. She didn't see where he went after that. He ended up behind us, over like there's this little privacy fence between the ice cream shop property and whatever building is on the other side of it. And dude had like a little Yorkie kind of dog. And he's back there, and he's got one of those retractable leashes, which I loathe those things anyway. I did not see him. My aunt said something right about the same time as Taz saw him and started going nuts. And then everybody in the back seat's going nuts, right? And I had rolled the windows back down, and of course, since he's going nuts, I'm like trying to grab his collar and like get him to like chill out a little bit, but he's freaking out because there's this guy and this dog back here. You know, and they're like 10 feet away. They did not stop. Dude comes over to the car and says they saw my dog or something, right? It's like, yeah, no shit. Obviously, they saw you and your dog, and that's why they are going nuts. So why are you getting close to my car, right? I'm gonna say it, but I was just like staring at this dude, and I'm trying to hold Taz and get a hold of what's going on in the back seat. Dude proceeds to put his fucking hand in my car with these dogs that are clearly going crazy. It's like, are you trying to get bit? He got nipped. Taz did like grab his fingers at one point. I think he was trying to just get in there to let him sniff. But it's like, who the fuck in their right mind, if a dog is going nuts, has the audacity to stick their... I feel like that's the time to stick their hand in the fucking car window. Which, let me just tell you, does not make my dogs, who are already being mindful and, you know, hypersensitive of their space, it doesn't make them calm anymore. You know, he kind of pulls back and kind of doing one of these as he walks away. And I don't know how much of that my aunt saw, because she was, you know, she said she saw him approach the car, and she was really confused about what was happening. Of course, I can't, you know, I'm trying to be mindful of what's going on back here. If I would have known ahead of time that this idiot was going to literally come to the car, I would have rolled the window up. I was not thinking that man was that stupid, but apparently he was that stupid. And, man, I was fucking livid for a while today. And, you know, I texted my brother and told him about it. We got back to my parents' house, and, okay, first off, the road disaster is officially started. They're putting a roundabout in at the intersection down here, and currently, like, today's the big start day, right? So, like, they put a whole bunch of cones down and have turned it into a one-way road, so you can only turn left onto the road. So, when I was going to the road, normally, if we're going to go walking, I will drive over to my aunt's house, pick her up, and then we'll go back the other way and go to the cemetery. Well, since I could have gone to her house and pulled in, but then it was like, then it'd be a hassle trying to get back onto the road because there's a huge ass line of traffic. And so she had seen that, so she was walking over. And so she came to the little drive that we live off of, and, you know, I just parked there and got out so I could put the corgi in the back seat. And we, all was fine and well. When we get back to my parents' house, my mom's sitting at the table, and I walk in the door, and I'm like livid, and it's like, why in the fucking hell, if you hear the dogs are going nuts, why would you have the audacity to stick your hand in the fucking car window when they're clearly like snapping, and that's not friendly. That is not a friendly noise under any circumstances. Do not reach in and pet the puppy. Especially, it's like, God, okay, the biggest of mine, that was Taz, right? So, it was like, his dog is like the size of my dog's poops. It's like, why on God's green earth do you think that is the appropriate time to stick your hand in with a dog that you don't know into a car you don't know of people you don't know to try to pet the puppy and calm it down? You're not going to do it. It's not a winning. It is not a win, right? So I was livid, and I just was like word vomit when I got home and blah, blah, blah. And hanging with my mom. She was impressed with the story. But when my dad came out there, she was damn near gloating at the fact that Sarah's dog bit somebody. It's like, fuck you, asshole. It's like, you're completely neglecting the fact that this idiot stuck his fucking hand in my fucking car window with my dogs fucking going nuts. And of course, at that point, they're all like hyper vigilant because what the fuck is this fool doing? So it's like Daisy was back there, a little corgi, and I mean, I don't know where she was in the situation because I think she was kind of hiding back with Ziva. Ziva was barking, but Ziva was on this side behind me, and I wrapped her leash around the headrest back there since I didn't have enough seat belts for all four, and wanted to make sure the puppy stayed where she was supposed to at that point in time. So I just wrapped Ziva's around the headrest because that's usually what I do when she's in the front seat. But yeah, I think she was just over there with Ziva. But everybody's trying to hide behind Taz. He's just like, he's the watchdog, man. He's like full on, what the fuck are you doing here? And when he sees somebody approaching the house, like with packages and whatnot, he goes off for a while, like until they're good and done, and he goes full hyena. It's like, he's not a ridgeback or anything, but he has like just this ridge of hair that stands up along his spine when he's like really excited or upset or whatever. And it's like, yeah, I didn't see that when we were over there with that idiot sticking his hand in the fucking door. But yeah. And my brother said something about, do you think he was trying to start something or whatever? It's like, okay, look, the dude was behind my car, so theoretically he probably could have gotten my license plate number, but he is not going to want to go there with me because everything about everything he did was wrong. It's like, you do not approach a fucking car of somebody you don't know to stick your hand in the window with dogs that are already clearly going nuts. It's like, walk past. Everybody in their right mind walks past. And I tried to roll the windows up so, nothing on that end, right? And so to muffle them a little bit for anybody on the outside. But God, I don't know. I was livid. And then even more so when my mom kind of got that little cocky gloat. It's like, oh, fuck you. Yeah. And I mentioned the whole thing to my brother on text, and he was taking his wife to an appointment, and there was apparently where they were at, he was a little concerned about like driving through there, and so her calling me apparently ended up being a little bit of a distraction, and it helped him not have to worry about her panicking in the passenger seat, and gave him a little bit of freedom to drive without her freaking out. Which, I mean, because that just makes people freak out all that much more. I told him about that. It's like, what the fuck? It's like, yeah, that's literally how our mother is. And he got to where he was going and and his wife went into her appointment, and we stayed on the phone. I think we talked for like an hour and a half. He fell asleep in my face eventually. His ADHD meds kicked in a little heavy in the afternoon. He always gets to a point where it's like he just hits a wall and has to take a nap, and apparently it was that point. But we talked for a good while before that, and I was actually going to do a video in the time that, because my mom wanted to pick up the kid, and so, 8:30 this morning, my brother asked if they were wanting to pick her up this afternoon, and my mom said yes. And he said, Sarah, did you get that? And she said, she's asleep. And he asked me about it later in text message and said, did you see that? Because he was wanting to make sure we didn't have the incident like last week where she volunteered to do it and then cut out to do something else and dumped it on me because I hadn't been aware of it previously. So, she just was able to do the thing because she just absolutely had to go to Sam's Club to get Gracie's broccoli and cheddar soup. But when they went to get Gracie, I was going to do a video then, but I was on the phone with my brother, and it's like, we'll just talk. Figured I was coming over here to skate anyway, so we'd worry about that later. And I talked to him a lot about everything with my aunt, the conversation we had, and of course he knows most of the things, but yeah, he also is prone to forgetting things and whatnot, and we bounce stuff off of each other repeatedly anyway, just because, the whole healing thing, you come back to the different points that you've been through a billion times and have to learn to navigate them from a different angle or from like wherever you've expanded to, and you've healed from this aspect of it, but now you got to face it at this level, and it's like, oh, so now what are you learning about what all really came from this thing, right? So yeah, we have had, we've always been fairly close. Middle school and his early high school was a little rough. But like when we were little, we were really tight. And then, we had our moments beyond that. And then since we've been back local, we're pretty tight again. Especially since I started setting boundaries with the family. There again, going back to that twin flame point, the thing that pushed me to set boundaries and to really start committing to those boundaries and realizing all the ways that I was sacrificing myself and what I wanted whenever I didn't have the boundaries, right? And, when I started really seeing things that as they were happening with the family and started filling him in, then he started looking and he started noticing, and it's like, what the fuck is going on here, right? And then of course he had his group therapy, and I told him about this whole talk therapy thing, that my YouTube thing, but we were talking about some stuff with my mom, and he asked me at one point, like, what the interaction, has been as far as people commenting or whatever, and is it largely positive, is it largely negative, what's been the experience? It's like, I said, honestly, it's like, first off, I set the intention that only people that are meant to find me would find me, right? And that it would go wherever it's meant to go, whenever it's meant to be there. I said, that said, I've only had 2 comments so far that felt negative, and the time frames they showed up, it was like specifically to push me to try to work through some other stuff. I said, but like the first guy, it was just kind of a demeaning type remark, and I said, I just went on there, deleted the remark, and blocked him from the channel. I said, and the other one that came up the other day, it's like, it was the same kind of thing. I said, but really the big thing is, it's like, I said, I said, this wasn't even an intentional thing that I really started to do, but what I've found is the longer the videos are, the more of me really starts to come out. Like, I start getting fired up about, like, my loathing of, like, church shit and bullying and political stuff, and it's like, and then, like, somewhere in there, it's like I start getting more comfortable to where I can talk about things that I don't want to talk about at the beginning of a video, because I don't want the wrong people to find me and to you know, basically, I don't want the cockroaches to start coming in, right? And, you know, or the moths to put out the flame or whatever. It's like, I like the slow start, because I figure if you can make it through the painfully slow and awkward sounding shit at the beginning, then I'm more likely to be okay with you being the type of person that finds my stuff, right? I said, so really, it's like, I said, the comments that I've gotten, I said, the first that really got a whole lot of reaction was the one I did after the bear picture ordeal. I said, when I won the contest and within 30 minutes mom and dad had ruined the day and, you know, made it to be something where I ended up crying the rest of the day, because it's like they were just trying to piss all over my moment. And how can we ruin this for you because you did something out of line that, you know, you weren't supposed to do. You're not supposed to be worthy of doing things. You're not supposed to be worthy of winning this contest. You're not supposed to do anything worthwhile with your life. You're here so we can suck the life out of you. You know, and I said, when I did that one and like cried through the video, and I said I had a lot of people that were kind of sympathetic on that end. I said there have been some that have come up with compliments, and then it's put me in a situation where I've had to like face that whole thing, because as I've talked about on here before, my connection with compliments, it has not been really good. I told my brother, it's like, I apparently had never told him. I said there was literally a time in high school when I was walking back to my room, minding my own business. Mom was laying down in her room and randomly calls me in there just so she can say, what was it? You're a very pretty girl, but you don't act like it very much. It's like, what a bitch. It's like, I was like, I don't know how I never told you about that one. I was like, I was getting hit with that shit all the time. I said, anytime she's ever told me she loves me, it's always been reframed, or like framed from the point of, I'm your mother, so I have to love you, but I don't like you very much. It's like, fuck you, that's not love. You know, and he never realized that like I had those kinds of experiences. So like the ones that I did start sharing with him that he, you know, was kind of connecting with, like, okay, he did know about the one from Drumline and the World Championship thing where I was trying to swallow my pride to go over and thank her for her contribution to the program, because she did in some way help us to get there. And I said, before I could even say anything, she said, I deserve this as much as you do. It's like, I see, you know, I was so dumbfounded in that moment that, like, I just went over to Brad and told him what she said, and, like, he gave me a hug, and it's like, what the fuck? You know, I was just so dumbfounded, because what do you even do with that? You know, it's like, clearly, that was my thought as soon as she was walking away, was, maybe you deserve this more, or maybe you need this more than I do. And I was just like, whatever. You know, but I had told my brother that one has come up a few times. I remember at one point when I was in undergrad, that was the first time I told him. And he, at that time, because I was in the dorm, my freshman year, it was his last year, he went to IUPUI so he could live at home and pay down the tuition and not have a whole lot in like student loan after the fact, right? So when I told him that, initially I think she was standing over his shoulder reading the conversation over his shoulder. And I think he told me that a long time ago, but I don't really remember much from that conversation other than that. It's like, yeah. I don't know. He sent me a message a little bit ago apologizing for falling asleep in my face. It's like, yeah, well. Not the first time, won't be the last time, I'm sure. But yeah. So it was like, I really feel like I didn't originally have any interest in trying to do long videos. I said it kind of has worked out that way because it's like there's so much venting and getting stupid shit off of my chest that I have to do before I can really start looking at other things and start getting excited about things. I mean, not all the time. Sometimes I can be more exciting starting out, but it's like I have to go through some stuff and like work it out to try to get it out of my system. I think the big reason he's asking about it more than anything is Gracie is on him she really wants to start a channel, and she wants to do it before they move so they can kind of she watches a lot of Hammy and Olivia, and she wants to be able to have like this is moving, right? Kind of one of those things, document their experiences and all that fun stuff. So he's kind of a little uneasy on it. There's been a couple videos that I've done recently that I've thought about sending him. Yesterday I told him that I ended, first off, go back to the point from yesterday. Yesterday I was debating on if I was going to go to the see the comedian on Friday. And today I bought myself a ticket. So I'm just going to do all things metal by myself for right now. It's like, the two metal concerts that I've gone to in my lifetime, in the past year and a half now. It's like I did both of those by myself. It's like I had 2 tickets, and the first one, my sister-in-law was having surgery, I think the day before or the day of, and, so my brother couldn't go because he was obviously having to be around for that, and then I asked the other friend, or the one friend that I had at the time, and she was like, I just don't think I like that kind of music. Whatever. It's like, yeah. But then that was for the first concert. The next concert, my brother was supposed to go with me and ended up bailing because his wife and daughter weren't ready to leave the fair. It's like I knew as soon as I found out they were going to the fair that he was not going to be going to that concert with me. It's like, well, I'm still going. And I had like this little 30-second span of time. I briefly mentioned on like the roller derby page, it's like, if anybody is interested in these groups and would like to go and could meet me there in an hour, it's like, you're welcome to come. But I know that at this short notice, because it was very short notice, that it wasn't likely. But it was like, you know what, I'm still fucking going. And it was so weird. Like at one point, like I said, it was Five Finger Death Punch and Marilyn Manson. And at one point, my dad says, well, I'd go with you if, I don't even remember what he said. And I was like, there is no way in hell I am taking you to this concert. Because he was trying to act like he knew something about Marilyn Manson. And no, he's not so bad kind of shit. And it's like, dude, I'm pretty sure he's been playing at some point when I was coming through the room, just in that little path from my room to taking the dogs outside to throw the damn ball for Gage. There's been a few times, like, I'll listen. I had like Korn one day and he was like freaking out because I don't even remember what he said, but it was something something about the devil music or whatever. I don't know, some kind of bullshit. And it was like Korn's Chutes and Ladders one day. I mean, I told my brother about that and he was like, yeah, okay. And I was like, so there's no way in hell you know anything about Marilyn Manson to be okay with going to that concert. And I am trying to enjoy this concert. Even if I have to go by myself, I am completely okay with going by myself. Yeah, you're not going. But just the fact that he even put it out there, it's like, no. And yeah, obviously, anybody who's paid attention to anything on my channel and has seen how I talk about my dad, Yeah, that wouldn't. It's like we can't. It's very difficult to be in a room with that man. At one point, he asked me if I wanted to go with him to my aunt's house. My aunt that lost her husband last year. I was like, all right. And because he needed help with a ramp that she didn't need anymore because her husband's dead. And so she didn't need it for his wheelchair. So we were picking up the ramp to take it to my grandparents' house. And so I went along because he needed me to help lift the thing. And we were there and we talked a lot. And it was funny because like he was listening to what I had to say. Let's go to that point. I talked a lot. Because my aunt asked me something and it started me on this tangent, and like mentioned something with the twin flame thing even, and like I was just talking about like all these different things and how they were connected and like how like the pieces that were coming together. Keeping in mind this was like August-ish. I think it might have been before that. I don't know, because we were taking my grandparents' places with the wheelchair, and then of course after my grandpa broke his leg, so I feel like the wheelchair was the bigger push for getting the ramp. But yeah. But like I was talking about all this stuff, and my aunt was really interested, and she really wanted me to come back so we could talk again. But it's like every now and then my dad would try to insert himself into the conversation, like, oh my God. At one point, I was talking about the suicidal ideation years, right? And my dad gets all, well, now you know your mom and I are always there. We always got your back. And I was like, I said, you just need to stop. I said, because there is a whole lot more there that you are not ready to handle. And my aunt was just kind of like, and he, like, there was a couple other times he tried to insert himself, but like that just like cut him right down. It's like, you are not acting like you have somehow been supportive of my life. It's like, if anything, how many times have I said on here that when I've mentioned something being wrong with the car, this one being their car, and of course, yes, I'm using it, but at the same time also limited income, all that fun stuff. So it's like, as I've said many times, yes, I was raised to be codependent. I was raised to be able to do what I needed to do to be able to be available to forever feed into the toxic family system. So I do not feel bad about having to work through this stuff and not have the flow on the income end of things. I was thinking about that today. Okay. My family is all, especially my parents and my grandparents, all into this whole scarcity mindset thing. And I was thinking today, it's like, now that I've set some boundaries and like am keeping them out of what I'm doing, it's like I have the money to do the things I really want to do and I'm excited about doing. It's like I'm able to pull together the money to do those things and still have enough to do whatever else. But it's like, now that their scarcity mindset isn't sticking for me, it's like money goes a lot farther than it used to. And I feel like part of that was them always preaching about how there's never going to be enough, made me more inclined to just waste it on stupid shit. But now it's like, okay, do I really want this thing? Or is it just the anxiety trying to tell me to collect more shit to, going back to that point with the narcissistic abuse and the trauma on that end, and like how the whole hoarding thing and clutter collection is a trauma response. And as I've talked about on here a lot, it's like what I've discovered for me as I've been doing this thing and working through my shit, It's like I have to clear so much from my system, and then I have to spend time working to physically clear stuff from my system. But it's like they go very much hand in hand. So it's like the clutter somehow serves as a buffer to keep from having to deal with the stuff that's painful to go into and to navigate through, heal from. Yeah. That was the thought today while I was over at the ice cream place. It's like, it is amazing. Like, I've, when I am just thankful to the universe that I have what I need when I need it, and that I'm able to do things that I really want to do. I mean, haven't got to the moving out part yet, but I feel like that's just around the corner. It's like when I really am able to keep them out of my head and to, navigate through this other stuff, it's like, it goes a lot farther. It's like, I don't feel this anxiety at spending it on stupid shit that I don't need. I mean, I still buy things I don't necessarily need per se, but it's like, will it in some way make me happy in this moment? Yes. Then follow the happiness, and I've been that way with a lot of things this year. Like, I got some art off Etsy and like a bunch of earrings and stuff off Etsy. These are off Etsy. Nova Moon or something for those. I don't know. For the little sunstone. My obsidian, one of them came undone, so I gotta fix that. But but then I just got a bunch more the other day, and it's like, because if you see something somebody else made and you really like it and are drawn to it, then it's contributing to the universal flow, right? But if you're just choking it off because you're never going to have enough, and it's never, there's never enough to go around, then, I mean, you're getting in your own way and blocking shit. So it's like, granted, I most often buy things in like the 4 payment plans to be able to make it look smaller so it doesn't trick my brain out. But yeah, it's like, I'm still, I got these little, I got this one thing, I forget what it is called. It's like a little, I don't think it was a wood burning thing. I don't know, it's kind of, I don't even know what to call it, but it's got like the lovers, like a tarot card, but it's like this little wall hanging thing, and it looks kind of like some like wood type something. And it's got the picture from like a lover's card, but like they're little skeletons. And I loved it, so I got it. And then there was another thing that there was this one, it was like art, it was there's, is it Perseus and Medusa? But Medusa looks like, like a 16-year-old girl or something, and Perseus is kind of around that age, maybe a little older, and she's still got the snakes for the hair, and they're not looking at each other, but yet it's kind of a lovey thing, and honestly, for various reasons, it reminds me of the twin flame connection. And that's another thing that's like been really interesting, like how much Medusa is following me around here lately too, because I got that picture because like I was really drawn to the image, and they have like their arms around each other, but they're not looking at each other, they're kind of looking off, and the snakes are tame, or they're calm, not like hissing and all that stuff. And then there's another one that I think it's supposed to be a wolf man, and he's standing with a woman under the moonlight, and they're holding on to each other the same way, and it's like, I was really drawn to these images, and it was like at the start of the whole twin flame thing, the start of my real awareness of it. Just like I said, that part came from 2023. I got the lip ring and the nose rings, and set the intention that never again would I work in a job that, okay, with the rings, it was never again would I work in a job that required me to be anything less than 100% who I am. And then I watched the movie with my mom that made me opt to turn my love life over to the universe. And since I was already thinking in that direction, it's like, well, since I haven't had any luck with the career end of it either, maybe I should turn that over to the universe as well to lead, right? So then, like, the next thing that happened was, he releases, like, he puts something on Instagram with a song that he had a playthrough on, and like I listened to this, like I saw the thing pop up, and I listened to it was just a little clip of it, and it's like, is there like a full version of this? Because it looks like there should be a full version of this, and I found it on YouTube, and then I went to it. I was listening to it, and I didn't remember the song from when I'd gotten into that band music from before, and I was like, is this a new song? And it's like, nope, it's on a few playlists, so clearly I listened to it at some point, but it didn't hit me like it did until after I turned those two things over to the universe. And then it was this moment of, that's him, that's the one you've been looking for. And it's like, yeah, right. Immediate response was, yeah, right, he's way out of my league. And then it was like, are you going to let us do this, or would you like to do it yourself again? And it's 111 as I'm talking about this. So, yeah, and then it's like, well, I mean, what do I have to lose, right? So then it's like, all right, well, I'll bite. Let's see what happens. There's been a lot of stuff that's kind of been shuffling around, but it's like there's so much healing that's had to come from it first, or come of it before anything. It's getting really windy now. In this window, anyway. Yeah, that window too. Ha! Kindly disregard all the Taz and Zibby nose in the back window. Yeah. But yeah, so that was the whole thing too. I say that a lot. I don't know why. That's what happens when you go for, like, you spend your whole life afraid to use your voice, and then you start using your voice, and then it's like, I say weird shit sometimes. Whatever, it is what it is. But yeah. I was writing out the timeline last night because it's like I'm torn. Like, I really kind of want to talk to the class about everything that's been going on, and like how all these pieces are like coming together. But at the same time, it's like, do I not want more people in the middle of that at all, so nobody's putting their icky energy to pull me down in like a moment I'm trying to be excited about but not nervous about, right? So yeah, I don't know. But I started writing it out, and it's like, is this even all the pieces? Because I'm not sure it's all the pieces. But I feel like, honestly, I've said that a lot through my life too, that like, okay, at one point I would get on these tangents where I would like have a bunch of thoughts going through my head in the middle of the night and couldn't go to sleep. So I started this little text chain with myself. And so I would just like, everything that came to mind, I would like type it out and then just hit send. And you just got to be careful that you actually send it to yourself and not somebody else, which so far we're good on that. But yeah, at one point I was like, this is going to be how I write my book, because I've sent myself so many text messages. But I feel like part of it's just like the timeline starting to get organized. Oh, that's what it was. At one point I was like, actually at many points, I just kind of thought the universe is going to have to write this through me because I have no idea. And I feel like the twin flame aspect of it is huge for at least the first book. Because I was always drawn to that one book back in undergrad that when God writes your love story, I was really into that idea and really kind of wanted that. And then it's like, well, it makes sense that career and love life would go hand in hand on that end. So yeah, I think navigating the timeline aspect of it at this point in time is kind of a start point. I mean, how many start points are there really? Because basically birth was the start point. It's like there have been other things. It's like, oh, this is just another start of, I don't know. Because I keep coming back to the same things, but it's taken as a big roundabout way of getting there. Yeah. But I do feel like I'm kind of shifting that direction now. And going back to that point, I was talking to my aunt earlier, and that I've mentioned, to Ben and my brother, of since I set the intention that he would know who I am and who I am to him, and then feeling like the big thing the other day was that damn live stream, because it was like nothing happened except for I entered the room, pause, and then he looks up and then grinned, and it was like, is that directly connected? Because that feels directly connected. And there was a pause, like the universe was like, all right, now take this in, right? See this moment. This is an important moment, kind of thing. But if that was the case, and he set the other thing in motion, that would make sense too. But then, what the fuck is going on here? I think things are getting ready to get interesting now. More interesting than they have been. It's really just keeping, I think, the family out of everything is the biggest thing. And I have asked my mom if she feels like playing in bleach this week, and she's like, well, maybe, because my hair needs done, preferably before she goes on her trip. If it doesn't, we're still colorful, whatever. But yeah, I actually thought about scheduling an appointment with the lady I went to last month and asking her how much it would be, how much she would do my hair for, because I know she does the colors, but she said that she said mine were done really well, and she said that she likes doing the colors, but it always makes her kind of nervous too because of the bleach and stripping the color out. I said, what we've finally figured out that really works for my hair, I said, we'll bleach the roots and maybe a little beyond that, but the stuff that's been really over processed, it doesn't get touched anymore. I said, but the way that I always do the same bunch of colors, I said, as long as red doesn't go over green, we're good. And I don't use any other colors that would, or the pink over the green, but I don't use what is it, I think orange and blue would cancel each other out, and yellow and purple. It's I don't use yellow or orange much, if ever. I will do orange around Halloween, but not really a whole lot otherwise. Usually it's just pink, purple, blue, and green. I said, but as long as she doesn't put the pink over the green or the green over the pink, it hasn't been a problem. This time we just forgot to bleach all of that section, so I don't know what's going on there, but obviously I know what's going on. It just didn't get bleached and it looks like a hot mess. And why does freaking blue turn weird? Actually, I thought it was more blue, but I think there was some green in it when I put it in the bangs, so those will just have to be purple next time, but whatever. I can deal with purple in the bangs. I think that was just the easiest one to grab, and it was I don't see it anywhere immediately, so we'll just go with that one. But yeah, But that's if I can catch her on a day where she's not actively being a pain in the ass because she's pissed at me for not doing everything like I used to. And yeah, I can say that's the case because I spent all that time the other day cleaning the living room and my bathroom and the hallway. And then, because I made a smart ass remark about it's a shame we didn't know company was coming because she and my dad hadn't done anything to clean up their filth in the other rooms. Then I hear her telling my aunt how awful me and my brother are. She made this big deal about... Now, when my dad was sick and in the hospital dying, my family got a little upset with me because they felt I was spending too much time there. It's like, that's the story you're going to go with? Not the fact that you were literally living there and blowing off everybody else, especially Gracie, but then try to swoop in and be the hero. And just because this is like, his dying has messed up everything, we got to be strong and pull it together for Gracie and make her have a good Christmas and blah, blah, blah. And she's like, fuck that nonsense. You weren't around for the things that were happening that, we tried to fill her in on, and I think like one of them was something that's going on with Gracie's eye. Like one eye is kind of a little bit of a lazy eye. But it kind of, I don't remember what they called it. There's something to it, and apparently they're out of the window where it could potentially have been fixed, so she'll probably always have to wear like glasses to help with it or something. But it's like when all that was going on and they tried to fill her in, it's like she couldn't be bothered with it because she was too busy feeding him her life force and, didn't give a shit about anything else because daddy needs me. So, yep, she got that story botched a bit. But, yeah. So sick of that bullshit, to be honest. I'm like, especially when the deal came up with Taz earlier and she looked like she was more than happy to gloat because Sarah's dog did this. Like he was somehow in the wrong even. It's like, no. It's like that dog was protecting his space. It's like, don't you dare try to make that, like he just approached some random stranger and bit him for the hell of it. It's like, no, that's not what that was at all. But yeah. I mean, that's the big thing. Honestly, if she does do my hair this week, I feel pretty confident that's the last time she'll be touching my head. And my brother's at the point where he's not feeling the need to completely disconnect and never come back per se, but he also understands how I would be, especially the stuff that I told him today, because I didn't realize I'd never told him about that stuff. And I was just like, it's like that makes sense as to why I mean, as close as we've been, I've talked on here many times about how when I started the YouTube channel and doing the thing, there was a big span of time where I wouldn't tell him anything because I knew if he thought what I was doing would somehow harmed the family, then he would absolutely tell them, and then it would bring attention to my stuff, and then it would be a problem, and it's like there was a long time I wouldn't tell him, but then I felt like I had to start sharing with him what I was learning as I was setting the boundaries, and then he started learning the same stuff. Oh, and Mookite. I think that's one of my favorite things that's happened early on in this whole thing. Like, I think it's sometime like the beginning of last year, I had this, I think I was dreaming, but as I woke up, it was like somebody, like urgently before I woke up, whispered Mookite Jasper in my ear as I was waking up. And it's like, clearly that's important because that felt like they just said it as I was like approaching my body again. So because I had been looking at different rocks and, for different things that I needed to, or felt I needed to add to my space in some kind of way. And when I looked up Mookaite Jasper, it was talking about to help break intergenerational curses, kind of a thing. I don't remember what exactly it was, but there's something with intergenerational, and that what I needed it for. I was like, that is for me. So I got a necklace, I got a bracelet, and I got like a few other things. Actually, I got a few bracelets. I was like, how much of this stuff do I need for it to work? And I got a couple palm stones because I was getting really into it there for a while, and I'm glad I got those. And I think I no longer have either of them because I got two of them. And one day, after I got my brother into the rocks and, working on the boundaries, I had like a red one and then I had a yellow one. It's like, all right, which one do you like better? And I think you probably went with the red one, but I won't swear to that. But I sent it with him and didn't tell him what it was for, but then things started shifting on his end. So we had a conversation, sometime in the past couple of months, and he was talking about disconnecting from the family a bit more too. And I was like, I said, part of that's my fault, right? And he's like, what? I said, we started getting into all these rocks and everything. I said, and I knew that I couldn't tell you anything about what was going on with me and the whole YouTube thing or any of the rest of it, because I was afraid that if I did, then you would share it with mom and dad, because you were trying to do what you were raised to do, to protect the family. And if anybody gets out of line, then it has to be brought to the family's attention so they can basically bully the faulty link, that's me, back into submission. And he, I told him flat out there at one point, it's like, I would not tell you initially that I was doing this thing because I was afraid you would take it to mom and dad and then, they'd come down on me and it would be a big problem. I said, I've very much been giving you a little bit at a time. It's like I started, we started talking about boundaries, got you into the rocks and started, pushing you in that direction, and, it started working. I said, but then I said, still going back to that family stuff, I told him what the Mookaite was for, and I told him how I came up with it, and, that it was whispered in my ear as I was waking up, and it's like, that's important, I need to get it. So I did. I said, and then I read the thing where it was talking about, disconnecting from the toxic family systems or however it was, and he was like, well, thank you, I'm glad you did. It's like, yeah. I said, me too, because now we can actually talk about everything and it's not a problem, because, we both respect that we're not, the other person's not going to go back and do what we were raised to do with, getting the family set on the shit or whatever, and I mean, that's huge. So back to being allies again. So that's helpful. Oh man. Apparently whatever was going on here is now done. I don't know if that was just really short, just an hour or whatever. But yeah. But I'm getting hungry, so I guess I should wrap this up. Yeah. Honestly, I like the little longer videos because I know that if anybody gets to this point of them beyond the start, then it's more of the people that are meant to find me and might actually be interested in what I have to say, and not just little toxic elements like the ones out there that, oh, you're doing something that's different and, that I don't feel capable of doing myself. Let me just see what I can do to knock you down a peg. So, bring you into my misery so we don't have to take the chance of you requiring us to step up and be better somehow. We'll just knock you down a peg so we don't have to step up. But yeah, I'm hungry. Anyway, I'm going to go back to that point. As always, I appreciate you. Until the next time, see ya.